Welcome to Level Up Conversations presented by TEDxYYC in partnership with First Calgary Financial. Today's conversation will focus on art during COVID with special guests One Big Jam founder Chris Maric and the 2020 TEDxYYC Artist-in-Residence Dean Stanton. We will discuss how art is providing creativity and tools for moving forward beyond COVID. Hello, friends. I'm Tim Tamashiro. Welcome to the Level Up Conversations with TEDxYYC, and we're very happy to be here with you today. Lots of stuff to talk about in the world, especially regarding COVID, and goodness knows we have all sorts of other challenges that are happening in the world right now. But today's conversation is going to be focusing on art during COVID. And we have two wonderful experts with us here. We have Dean Stanton, who is a painter and a painter extraordinaire, I might add. He was planned to be the 2020 TEDxYYC Artist-in-Residence, but we're going to talk about that. Welcome to you, Dean.
Hello.
We are also joined by Chris Maric, who's a founder of One Big Jam. Is that the correct title? Founder?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
I
like that.
That means you found it. Yeah. You found the idea and you made it happen. So happy to have you here with us, Chris.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
This is art during a time of COVID. This can either be an experience for artists to absolutely just halt completely, or to really, really fire up creatively and find solutions. So I'm excited to talk to both of you about what your experience is. But you both look happy and healthy, so that's a good start.
Yeah, it's got to go with the flow, right?
You got to go with the flow. That's exactly it. So, Dean, I'm going to start with Chris in this conversation. So if you'll excuse us, we're just going to pop off to the side, and please feel free to listen in. Thanks for being here with us. We got Chris Maric here, who is a founder of One Big Jam. Tell us about what One Big Jam is.
One Big Jam is basically become this community and platform where, in a live situation, which is interesting, has basically brought together community, or people from all across different communities, different age groups, and we effectively do exactly what it sounds like. It's a big jam where we try to make music on the spot with no set lists, no rehearsals, it's meant to be completely off the cuff. And it's just kept on growing. There's been a really great contribution and reaction from a lot of different communities to actually get together and try to make new music on the spot. And over the 10 years, it's just been, it grew from just, as you said, we found it in a weird kind of way. It just happened. And I could, if you want, I can get into that. But long story short, it just kept on growing to the point where we're kind of like this legitimate organization now.
Legitimate, yeah. Well, because people understand what the experience is like, especially musicians who are taking part and audience members who have been coming together to have that experience along with you. But that is the biggest hurdle to get over now, right? One big jam. You can't have any big jam, especially if COVID says that it may not be safe. How do you deal with that?
It sent us kind of into the cave right now. Is a very honest answer. Like, we are the exact opposite of social distancing. So that, I think, sums it up right there. I could talk about all the things of how it has affected, but in the end, it's like we are not able to do what we've done through the COVID kind of distancing and all the regulations. Now, I'm the type of person, I'm always try to have the attitude of make the best with what you've got. So we've been talking for years about kind of like, what is the possibility of doing like a digital platform? And so that's where our energy is right now. And it's not an easy question. Like, it's for every idea you put up there, it gets shot down pretty quickly, usually because of technology. It's not the connection. It's not the support. It's like, we're like, yeah, but what if, or legalities that's could be a whole other situation, because when you start publishing things, it's a different thing than just kind of going up on stage and doing something on the fly, where everybody's like, okay, cool. And then the next day it's gone. So for us, we're really trying to figure out what our role is now. Well, sorry, we know what our role is, but we're trying to figure out how to make our role legitimate and also meaningful in these times.
Legitimate and meaningful. Well, I guess maybe you can answer this question for our audience. Well, why is it that you just can't just jump online and have a jam session? You know, you got a piano player, you got a bass player, maybe you got a conga, somebody wants to rap or whatever the case. What is the difficulty in doing that? Just maybe explain to the audience so they understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you at least two different answers. I'll try to keep it short. Number one, I'd say there's a technological wall here. Latency is like the whole idea of like how long it takes for, say, your sound to get into the computer to get back to the listener. There's like, even if it's just a matter of milliseconds, especially over online, that is enough to completely kill the spontaneity of a live performance. And then there's also that level of connection. I've talked to a lot of people last week about this from different sectors. And one thing that's common is everybody really misses the live experience, like being next, connecting, like sweating next to people, you know, and there's something about that that's really to be said. So there's a technological thing. The other challenge I'd say right now, and this is for me personally, I'll speak, is that there's so much stuff happening right now, and everybody's just jumping onto the online sphere. It's like, which I think is fantastic in some ways, but it creates this kind of river of noise out there. It's like this is the kind of comment I've heard from a lot of different people, where it's kind of great that we're getting inundated with so many things, but at the same time, our attention spans are not capable of handling the bandwidth of stuff that's coming at us right now. And so I'd say those are my top two answers in a nutshell, and you're more than welcome to ask me more.
Well, and this is one of those interesting questions that actually you just brought up and made me think. You know, this river of noise. You know, every musician on earth now is suddenly a YouTuber and a live streamer, because we don't have the ability to be able to go out and to perform live in front of people for the most part. Is this going to create a net benefit in the long run? I mean, will music careers, in your opinion, be partially online and partially live? Again,
I'm going to go from like the research, let's call it that. Like just from the conversation I've had, you're going to get a lot of different perspectives on this. Some people have been absolutely decimated. It was crushing to hear. Orchestra life, for example, like they're like, you know, we can't do this. The dance community, they're like, we can't do this right now as is. You know, again, even what we do, it's something we quote unquote can't do right now. So I think, you know, generally speaking, you know, people persevere. You know, the creativity and innovation kind of tend to kind of grow. This is an analogy I use a lot, and it's actually very apt in what I just said. Is like, I think in general, let alone COVID, we've kind of hit this muddy time where like everybody's jumping online, or everybody's trying to kind of basement produce, which is actually really great. But it just kind of, it's like a flood. And in floods, it damages a lot of things, but it also creates the most fertile ground. So I think we're in the wake of the damage. And it's like, I think we have to be continually resilient and optimistic, but we also have to acknowledge that there's a lot of pain specifically right now. At the same time, and you know, this is a faith thing. This is something you hope for. We hope that innovation will actually create something that we're not even aware that exists yet. So potentially, I think there are huge opportunities here, but so far, I'm going to be very blunt. It's just like, as it stands, it's been a bit more of a somber time.
It is I guess a time where so many people are trying so many different things, and but I guess maybe what the net benefit is out of this is that maybe artists are going to understand new ways to be able to provide meaningful experiences to people in new ways, and maybe even incorporate that into their live performances that they do, you know, in front of people. Or I don't know. It's, you know, to be able to look at a screen and to have an experience that is going to be meaningful and worthwhile for 45 minutes or whatever the case, that is becoming more and more of a challenge, because people are sitting in front of screens doing Zoom meetings, you know, and maybe that's the last thing that people want to do when they're having time for themselves, is to jump back on and have more screen time. Do you see that being a problem?
Again, it's kind of I'm of the opinion everything's a double-edged sword. You know, which one was it? Side Door. Sorry, I just lost the name because I've
Side Door Access.
Yeah, they have an interesting platform where, you know, some of the artists are speaking there. They like this idea of that this virtual audience that's watching them at the same time. And it's kind of it's not to replace live. And I want to kind of just say that right off the gate. The general idea I hear from people is like, you can't replace live. And therefore, my 2 cents is that the digital experience, it can overlap, but it shouldn't replace live. It should be actually something new and something very interesting. So there's some pluses there, but it is very difficult, this idea of connection. And I think, again, attention span is a very difficult thing, and also resource. Because now we're really getting to this point where it's like, to be blunt, how do we fund a lot of stuff? Like a lot of people, there's one thing to make art for the sake of art, and there's a lot of people who make a living off it. And we're kind of almost talking about potentially 2 different conversations, again, with overlap, but it's a very difficult conversation where, like I said, some people are appreciating this time and the opportunities to do digital, and some people are just not able even to take to it, let alone want to.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. And for, you know, to that point, maybe it's not all digital. I mean, digital is one of the solutions, right? But if you're in one big jam situation, usually what that looks like, from the experiences that I've had, and it's a lot of fun to come to a one big jam event, is that you have a great big collection of musicians that are coming on stage, and you're curating, and everybody's setting up a different beat or whatever the case. But they don't necessarily have to do, you couldn't necessarily have that experience without gathering people together, but there is a way that you could maybe separate them, you know, put them along a road with a whole bunch of monitors or something. I mean, gosh, you know, there are so many different ways to do it.
Well, we're working on, and as I said to you earlier, I'm trying not to overpromise here. We're working on this idea of a digital platform where it's not going to be the same. And like I said, my personal opinion is I'm not trying to recreate the live experience. I'm trying to take what the digital connection experience is and utilize the best aspects or attributes of that. It's not going to be the live experience, and nor should it be, in my opinion. I really look forward to getting back and sweating next to people on stage or in the crowd. But I really look forward to kind of creating this digital experience potentially as well, where, you know, they can support each other, but they're not, you know, necessarily mutually exclusive, but they're kind of different experiences.
Yeah. One of the things that the Alberta health recommendations regarding COVID and entertainment is concerned is that we're starting to see more advancements, I guess you can call it, so that musicians can go out and have small gigs. Maybe they can have 2 or 3, but they stand apart from each other and whatnot. But the one type of musician that is not allowed to do a whole bunch of public events are singers.
Yeah.
because you know, you express a lot of air when you sing. So choirs are now subject to those challenges, and, you know, backup singers and goodness knows what else, you know, and for that matter, doing speeches and those types of things. So I can see where it's challenging to think, you know, of the way ahead and to be able to make it not only worthwhile for the audience, but especially worthwhile for the musicians. Yeah,
I think this is a moment for pause and reflection at being forced. It's not even meant like, oh, look at this opportunity we got. It's like, what else are you going to do right now? And so I'm of the opinion, like, let's try to make the best of what we got right now, and let's, you know, fingers crossed, knock on wood, hopefully get back to this semblance of quote unquote normal, or the new normal. And all of us are kind of waiting to find out what that means, you know?
Yeah.
It also depends on the type of music. I think there's certain styles, and I'm gonna speak specifically to music, where if you're sitting 6 feet apart from somebody, you can really enjoy it. You know, you might be like, this is best. Nobody's talking. I'm not next to anybody. And like certain styles of music actually work for that. If you're in a punk concert and you want to smash against somebody and kind of like, you know, like that's not going to work. You know what I mean? And that's a part of the experience though. You know what I mean? It really depends on the style, the genre, the emotion.
Yeah.
There's a lot to consider, you know?
Yeah. What are you hearing from your friends and colleagues in the music industry? Is there any experience that they may have shared with you? You don't have to share names or anything like that, but is there any experience that they may have shared with you that is frustrating them?
Absolutely. And again, I'll say, like, the interesting thing I find from the people I talk to is that there's a lot of different perspectives. Some people absolutely have taken this and they're like, I appreciate this opportunity for a little bit of calm. I've heard terms like decimated. I've heard terms like blood on the floor. So it depends on which part of the, you know, of course, not literally. But there's parts of the industry that are really looking at this going like, how are we going to deal with this? Because the other idea too is a lot of times we like to put the focus on the artist, but there's a whole industry that surrounds the artist, let alone like managers, booking agent, venues, and festivals. And then if you look at a festival, how many different parts affect that from that point on, anywhere from paid people to volunteers. There's a massive ecosystem that's completely just been hit so hard, Yeah. So like one comment I heard that really kind of hit me in the gut too is that they're saying like, again, without naming names, this is a comment I heard is like, if you're young and you suddenly have to make a big life change, you're a bit more resilient. But if you're a little bit older and you've been doing this your whole life, and like this is not so easy just to be like, well, I'm going to shift trades now. You know what I mean? Like there's again, we have to really look at the individuals. Everybody has a different experience in this, and so, like I said, there's some positivity that people have, but it's a very somber time, as I said.
Yeah, it certainly does have a lot of different angles to it, and thanks for sharing those with us. Because again, from going, oh yeah, things are great. I'm having lots of great new ideas to decimated and blood on the floor. Oh my goodness, that is a terrifying way to be able to look at something that you love, right?
I think we have to take all those perspectives in at once and not feel like we have to choose it's one or the other. My philosophy in general is like, it's very hard sometimes to kind of take in two opposing ideas of something or somebody and accept them both. Yeah. Because sometimes we like to choose a side, or we like to say, hey, this is my standpoint and therefore I'm going to support it with whatever it comes. But like the reality is it's a very mixed experience, and like, I don't want to speak on anybody's behalf specifically because of that. It's like everybody has a different experience.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, so ATB, for example, they have an arts and culture branch that is available in a couple of cities, and they kind of talk in terms of, artists come and deal with our bank because we know that artists, if they're really, really passionate about, everybody's passionate about what they do, then they know that they might be doing their art, but they might be doing also a bartending side gig, and they might also have a side gig where they're hustling and doing events or whatever the case. They do 5 or 6 different things in order to be able to cobble together a living in order so that they can do their own art. Now in your case, you don't work in the arts full time. This is something that is something that you enjoy and you do on an occasional basis. Is that fair to say? But you work in an entirely different industry, right?
100%. And like, that was a conscious decision. Whether or not, I still question whether or not it was like a quote unquote good decision. When I was, let's say, late teens or 20s, I said, you know what? I was doing a lot of music, but I said, I kind of want to go the day job route because there's elements where, like, this is just me being the artist self, is that like I want to be very judicious and like specific about which gigs I want to take. You know what I mean? And so that's been great in that kind of sense. But now I've almost run now with kids and job. I've kind of run out of time in some ways. So like it's kind of, again, a double-edged sword where, my art and my music is by far my biggest passion. It is how I identify myself as a person. Yeah. But my 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 for that matter is going to work and then dealing with the kids. You know what I mean? And but again, that puts me in a very privileged position that, I'm working from home and I can actually just kind of, as little time as I have to focus on music, at least I can kind of make it something like a passion project, for lack of better terms. Yeah, and you do it for your own mental well-being and for your own enjoyment at this point in time. Yeah. There's also there's a professional side of what I do. Like, I do professional gigs. A big part of what I've been working on is community as well. Like, I really believe that Calgary has a really interesting opportunity in general. So, and that's maybe a conversation for another time. But Calgary has a really interesting opportunity to create art and culture right now, and I stand behind that. Create art together. Yeah. Absolutely. And with that, Chris, I wonder if I'm going to bring, if it would be all right, if I was going to, thank you very much for all your points and all your insight. And I want to bring Dean Stanton into this conversation here now, because Dean is all about bringing people together in order to be able to do art together. I mean, that's really what it all boils down to. So there's the beautiful tie between the two of you, as you both enjoy the idea of bringing people together. So, Dean, I'm going to switch over now, Chris. I'm going to talk to Dean now. Okay. Sounds good.
So Dean, thank you very, very much for being on the show. You're all about having people come together and tell their story through an art project. Is that a good way to describe what it is that you do?
Yes, yeah, it is. Absolutely. Thanks. And it's funny because it started probably, I don't know, as long as 15 years ago. I started doing projects in schools. You know, I would be asked to come into a school and do a mural project, and then, you know, just being paid to do a piece of art, and then watching how kids were just watching this process and drooling, and I'm thinking, well, there's got to be a way to let the kids help. So I'd let a couple of kids just sort of, you know, add brush strokes or whatever, and then it just hit me to create a process where the kids all, I mean, not that landmark or anything, but to just make a mural in small pieces that the kids could do all together, and then we reassemble it and hang it up. So it's pretty much a 50-50 collaboration between me and kids. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you know, so that expanded into communities and stuff, and you know, it's kind of become my main bread and butter, which is awesome because I like working with the public, and my art is so simple and fun that it's easy to work with people. Like, you know, if I'm working on an art project in the public and some stranger walks up and says, "Hey, can I paint?" and I go, "Sure," like, I can't wreck it, you know? So I just let it rip. And so that process became a marketable thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of that. So yeah, so I just get, you know, I drive around the city or the province and just, you know, work with a group of strangers and we make a piece of art together. But it's pretty cool because people walk in and there's this artist making art or, you know, about to do something and they're allowed to help, and it really blows people away. Like,
no
that they get
kidding.
to add to an artist's piece of work. And I'm like, hey, bring it on. You know, not every artist can work like that, but I can, just because it's pretty easy. And, you know, there's never any mistakes I need to fix or anything. It's just, it blends together well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that the community aspect is pretty important. And then I had the gigs that I do now are collaborative, but it's a little more streamlined where they're done on a sheet of clear acrylic. And so it started with weddings, and now they've gone into community events, weddings, team building, or families.
Yeah.
So the family aspect has started to take off, where some nice person or a couple calls me up and wants a 6 foot by 4 foot mural, and I show up and we do it with their family, and then they hang it up.
So do they tell you a story? Do they tell you a story about their family, and then the family? Yeah,
oh yeah,
and then you create the line work, and then they fill it in.
Yeah,
is that kind of how?
Yeah, I basically create a custom coloring book almost. So people have seen the website or my art, and they know that it's very simplistic. So they just give me a list of 20 or 30 ideas, and then I draw their family in my sort of, you know, simplistic style, and things they like or want to do or whatever. And then, then I just draw those black lines on a clear sheet and supply that with all the paint and the frame and everything. And they paint it, and we just literally, when we're done, we hang it up. And
it's amazing.
But of course, thanks. It's a neat process, and I've got it so streamlined and so tight and slick, and it's great. And then coronavirus.
that was my very next question. Then what happened?
Funny, but it's kind of like, I'm like, hey, I'm on a roll. Not. So it became. I'm like, oh, so. I know this is all temporary and it's starting to bounce back, but it was pretty interesting. I started to really get some gigs lined up. Like, you know, a year ago I had maybe 1 gig every 2 months, and now I'm starting to get 4 or 5 a month, and it feels great. And that's with very little marketing. It's just word of mouth. So I need to work on that. But I had a bunch of gigs lined up, and you know, it all got kind of canceled or postponed. Mm-hmm. One of my sort of clients or collaborations is Food Trucks YYC, I think it's called. But that happened last summer, where we started to do these projects at food truck events, and I'm just like, what a natural fit. Because people are all snarfing down food and drinking beer or whatever, and there's this art project off to the corner, and it was great. We did 3 or 4 or 5 events, and I mean, to get asked to show up and get paid to do art with the public at a food truck event, I mean, I'm surrounded by my first and second true love, you know. I'm like, tacos, yup. Vietnamese, yup. Art, yup. You know? Like, I would just take breaks from the art, and as people are just painting, I would just take off and buy food. Yeah, but yeah, they come on themselves, but they're community based. And so I had 3 or 4 or however many jobs lined up, all booked, and then Corona hit, and then they sort of got moved or canceled or whatever. I think people mainly just wanted to postpone them, but it's starting to come back. One of the clients that wanted a piece had already booked it, and then contacted me well into the Corona thing and said that he was still keen. And I said, oh, how do you want to do it? But what I didn't know is he lives in Denver. And so, it was always going to be mailed out. He saw me on LinkedIn, and so he ordered it, but I just in my head thought maybe he was in Calgary. But he said, oh no, just box it up and mail it. And so we did. So he just did it with his family. But then I thought,
Oh,
wow. So I mean, here in the middle of this crazy pandemic, and I thought, wow, people still want to order this thing and shipped in a box. And so it arrives in Denver, and he opens it up for his wife's birthday. The whole family paints it, and they hang it up. And I'm like, that was like totally remote control. I didn't even have to be there.
that's
It
so.
was
Is
great.
this so? Is this something then that you can that you're seeing as an opportunity to be able to move forward? You do exactly what you do. Send them the paint and the artwork, and they finish it.
Oh yeah, and it's one of I've done 3 or 4 projects by remote. Like University of New Brunswick got one for a STEM conference and stuff like that. So I've done smaller ones where I box the entire project, everything in it, and ship it, and you just literally open it and paint it and hang it up, and it doesn't usually get damaged or anything. And so I do prefer the ones that I do here, where I can, or Edmonton or whatever, where I go and I physically do it with people because it's fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Because people walk up and everyone's like, "Can I paint?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely."
So what does it look like now, Dean? In terms of COVID, we're at a point now with Alberta's understanding and our situation where we're able to get together in small groups, maybe up to 50 or 100 people outdoors.
Yeah.
Is this something now that is viable for you to be able to take your art back into the public and allow them to take part? The biggest challenge, I would imagine, is what are you going to do with the paintbrush? Because you can't hand off things to people, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's super weird. Yeah, because people need to be able to touch the brushes. I think, and I really appreciate Chris's perspective, where he, has such enthusiasm and just like this unstoppable spirit. I mean, when Corona hit, I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't feel like a loss of work or any kind of panic in that regard. I mean, I sort of freaked out, and then I thought, well, if I make my living off art, and I thought, well, if there's a glitch or a little hiccup here, maybe the government will have some money, maybe. I thought there must be something, opportunities or grants or something that I could, I wasn't going to starve to death. And I was right. And thanks to our government stepping in. But I was trying to think of different ideas, not to take advantage, quote unquote, of the COVID, but just thinking, well, I can't do this, can't do that. Jobs have tanked. What can I do out of my garage or using technology? But nothing really struck me because I'm not extremely well versed in Zoom conferences or any of that stuff. So essentially, I actually just started, mucking around in the studio. Like typically, if I have if I have downtime, typically in the winter, I might have a month or two of not very much work. That's when I just pull out junky materials and I start playing with other styles or play around with digital, digital imagery, just sitting on the couch in my pajamas some days, just kind of messing around. Usually something creative, but I'll, form a body of work, to kind of, present later or whatever. But when COVID sort of hit, instead of sort of forcing myself to go into too much of a creative mode, which I still did, I mainly just took the chance to kind of spend more time with my kid, because we all did. And I just kind of relaxed and just let creativity come as it wanted to. But I mainly just sort of said, let's go for lots of walks, or whatever.
Is that?
But if creativity struck, I was able to go in the studio and just kind of come up with something or build something on a whim. But then my kid walks in and we could do something together or whatever. So I just took it as a cool experience, thinking this is probably never going to happen again, hopefully, and it's not permanent. I just was like, let's go with it,
Yeah, and
I didn't force myself to be creative, which I think some people do, and I admire that. I'm a little more lazy than a lot of other artists. I'm just like, don't force it. There's got to be something on Netflix, it'll come.
And did you view it as one of those situations where you go, well, when is the next time, or when have I ever had the opportunity to be able to let the shoulders kind of fall and just relax about it? Is that?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I remarked to my friends, I was like, a couple of weeks in, and again, I was looking for the silver lining, right? And because 30 years of self-employment, as I mentioned to you earlier, that can prepare a person for like any kind of weirdness that's going to come your way. And I mean, a pandemic is, of course. Or a global pandemic is, of course, off the rails weird.
Yeah.
But it was still kind of like, I know other people are affected, and we did our best to help anyone we knew. That was maybe having a tougher time, but I found personally myself wasn't having as tough a time as some people. So I'm like, hey, if you need anything, if you need help, if you need whatever, within social protocols, I was able to offer help or whatever. But I just kind of didn't panic and just kind of. Yeah. Oh, sorry. What I was going to say was I was saying to a friend a couple of weeks in, I thought this is the first time in 30 years that a Monday doesn't freak me out.
Oh.
I just was like, it's Monday, and 4 or 5 Mondays in a row, and I just thought, I don't care, bring it. like it's just another day, because the whole world was kind of brought to a halt for a short amount of time.
Sure.
So it wasn't just me. I just thought, well, actually, everybody's retired now.
It sure felt that way for a while, didn't it?
Like, hey, this isn't bad. No one's going to be phoning me on Monday morning looking for something.
Yeah. Yeah. And think
so
of
that was pretty weird.
Billions of people that would have had that exact same experience, but on their own level, right? It's amazing. Yeah. The stress
helped
level.
that I didn't have a job to lose, so that was good.
Amen. Dean, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is that I know that the government, especially the federal government, has set up some programs where artists can apply for funding now in order to be able to do new projects, and that kind of streamlined some of the processes. Is that something you even entertained?
Oh yeah, for sure. And the thing is, I need to be better at follow through. And I don't know specifically what you're referring to, but I have had it mentioned by a couple of friends to look into. So I will definitely look into that, because I think the whole grant process is pretty cool. And I know a few theater groups and stuff that have had grants, and I've never applied for one in all this time. And I've been encouraged by, even before COVID, Alberta Foundation grants or whatever, travel study grants, all these things, they have a lot of appeal, but I've just never done it. And I've been encouraged by other artists who say, hey, you've been doing this for 30 years on your own. You should totally apply for a grant, because, I've got a pretty good track record of being able to cough up projects. So now would be the time to do that, right?
Cough up projects.
Well, it's kind of like, for lack of a better description.
Well, this is.
I mean, I like what I do, but some days that's what it feels like.
Well, yeah, I've talked to so many musicians where one of my great musician friends in Toronto, Rich Underhill, with the Shuffle Demons, he says my day job is booking my night job. So
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's a reality to it. I mean, I just wake up in the morning. I've got to get stuff done. It's got romantic. It can be romantic too, but it's mainly just get her done, get the bills paid.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to do what I do. So yeah, so I have a pretty light look at it. But no, I should definitely pursue something like that, because I offer a pretty great project or gimmick, if you will, for the public to just waltz in and set up this project, and people walk in and do it, and then you have this pretty cool looking piece of art because of the formula. It just works really well, and it's hanging on the wall in 3 hours. And I mean, I've had a couple of
3 hours. You can do the whole thing in 3 hours. Holy
What's
cow!
That?
You can do this whole thing in 3 hours.
Typically, yeah. So like a 4x8 foot one. So that's pretty large. In about 3 hours, depending on the participation. Like the food truck ones were about 4x8 feet, and you have a lot of people wanting to do it. So that's good. I mean, a wedding, you might have 200 people and they come and go. And sometimes, I basically get the client to tell me when it needs to be done, and I work backwards. And so there are times at weddings where I just say, hey, I take someone aside, the bride or groom or whoever's running the show, and I say, you wanted this thing ready at 10 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to finish it. And they just say, sure, go for it. So there are times, it's rare, but sometimes I have to dive in and just actually physically finish it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen that often. But yeah, in about 3 hours, it's all put back together and ready to unveil. And
do you see yourself?
That's pretty cool.
Do you see yourself, Dean, now, just after this discussion, maybe taking your projects a little bit more online so that you can provide the raw materials of your line drawings and the paints? Is that something that would be welcome for you to try out?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that. There's a ton of kind of, I really enjoy coming up with technical processes and just weird ways to get things done. And yeah, so there's a ton of stuff that I'm cooking up to make it remote, maybe not purely digital, but just some way to make it, I don't know, transposable to the public, just taking total ownership of it, So I'll work on that. But yeah, there's a few ideas, but then I guess everything kind of got shelved with coronavirus. It's all going to come right back. Like, I just realized how well my projects would fit post-COVID. So, about 2 weeks ago, I created a little miniaturized version of the main website, and I created a mailer, and I'm just about to send it out to community halls in Edmonton and Calgary. So you got 200 or 300 community associations which will get this mailer, which just describes this project being, hey, I do these murals with your community, so I'll come and do one, and here's some packages, here's some ideas. And if the mailer, I was trying to do it in a respectful way, and so if the mailer tweaks their interest, they can go to the website where it has all the details. But it basically says to community associations, and they're always looking for projects like this, it says, hey, like, we're coming out of this incredibly strange time, and as people can start to come together, here's a cool wildly affordable, fun thing that you've never even heard of. That depends on people working together. And because people get literature on these projects and they're just like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, right on. That's a good response, you know?
Sure.
And so I want to send out my first kind of marketing salvo as a post-COVID kind of thing to say, hey, you know, but again, respectfully, it sort of just says, hey, trying to keep it light and, you know, looks like we made it kind of attitude, you know, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm just about to send that out, so we'll see how, you know, maybe I get a couple of gigs, maybe I don't know.
Well, so much of the process that you offer, and I really, maybe it's not fair for me to say process, but experience maybe that you offer is that you really do
it's
distill.
All of that, yeah, for sure.
You really do distill people's stories and experiences down into a piece of art that tells a story, tells their story, and I wonder how. You know, I guess just boiling down their story, especially their COVID story, because God knows everybody's got a crazy COVID story. How do you do that in a way that is, you know, positive and light and fun and easy, like the type of art that you offer?
Yeah, no, it's a good combo for sure. I think it's going to be perfectly, or I think it's going to be well received personally. And sometimes, like anyone that knows my work knows that it's very, very simple, and I don't want to diminish it. But I mean, a lot of my images look like a lot of other images, depending on the busyness or the simplicity. And I'm okay with that. I love every stroke that I put down. I love making my own work. I never get sick of it. And so far, people still enjoy it. And I mean, when a family wants a piece of art, or it depends, like the client. If the client is a family, the art might be very simple. It's just like the husband and wife, couple of kids, dogs, they have a cabin, they do whatever.
Yeah.
And it's usually some of the same concepts. Then if it's a wedding one, they're usually a lot more complicated, which I love. And it's like a whole, here's where we met, here's where we live, here's this crazy thing that happened in Australia. There's always way more personalized things where if you look at the thing, it's a crazy painting, but they know what went on, you know, or they know the story behind all these weird little icons and symbols and things like that. And those are the fun ones to do. So sometimes they're very busy and sometimes they're so simple, you know?
Yeah.
But I just do the sketch. They tell me to tweak it or not tweak it, and then I just finish it off.
Extraordinarily meaningful, though, nonetheless. Now, I just wanted to kind of.
It seems to be, yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, what's transpired here now. You are the 2020 TEDxYYC Artist-in-Residence, and you were no doubt creating something so that people could have that experience with you live on stage at the Jack Singer Concert Hall. Is that still in the works for you?
In terms of with TED?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, that'd be fantastic. I check in with the people that I've been in touch with. I check in now and then and just say, how's it going? What's up? And just curious. I know that things are crazy and I have no expectations. I just check in and I get the occasional request for a couple of pieces of art, you know, some little digital thing that they can use for marketing. And I'm like, right on, you know. I text me a couple of days or weeks, but I eventually get it to whoever wants it. Just trying to keep being a team player, you know. So if somebody from the TED organization wants stuff, I just crank it out, and then waiting to see what happens next. I mean, I would love that. I mean, I'm open to anything. I just don't know the logistics of how that'll happen. I suspect something will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for your sake, Dean, I really do hope that TEDx is able to have a live event at some point in time in the future, and to be able to have you create a piece of art that everybody can take part in.
Oh yeah, it'd be a blast, and I mean the crowd would be great, you know. So
yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic for sure. I just, in the meantime, just working on the next thing in front of me. So
yeah, I'll
wait till I get a phone call and then I just hop to.
I think maybe that is the saying that works best. I have Chris back on the screen right now, so all three of us are in the room. The one thing that I really appreciate from both of you is your positivity. That art is going to happen for art's sake.
Oh yeah.
Do you feel that? I mean,
Chris? it's a glitch. We'll get through all this stuff. Not to diminish anybody that's gone through painful times or medical issues, but it's we're going to make it through.
Yeah. Chris, is that how you're feeling?
Sorry.
Is that how you're feeling?
Yeah, I think there's another aspect. It always brings back this one interview I saw with Nina Simone, and I'm paraphrasing, but she talks about how an artist's role is to kind of reflect the times, and I really think that the people I talk to is like they want to communicate and express. It's almost cathartic, the chance for you to actually deal with the real world and again, it depends on your motivations of why you're trying to get stuff out in the public. But for some people, it's just kind of, it's their ability to be like, you know, I just got that off my chest. You know, I think it's one of the most important things we have.
It's cathartic. Yeah.
And it's safely cathartic.
Safely.
It's like, you know, like I look at like metal music and how so many people are afraid of metal music. Like, wouldn't you rather people getting their anger out in their music and their art?
Oh yeah, metal's awesome.
I agree.
We're going to see a new Dean Stanton heavy metal art piece going out to heavy metal bands all over.
Oh yeah, just yeah, man.
It's gonna be the Guar heavy metal
yeah,
piece.
Man.
It's gonna go
fireworks, dry ice, you name it.
You name it, yeah.
More Spinal Tap than Guar, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. Well, I really do appreciate having you both on the show today and providing us with your insight into, you know, what it is that you've been going through and what you've been experiencing. And goodness knows, art is a way forward. We've seen it happen time and time again. Whether it's music, whether it's the fine arts, whether it's dance, however we're expressing ourselves, it is a way forward. So, you know, talk about a level up conversation. You've both brought this whole idea of art up a few notches. Thank you so much, Dean Stanton.
So. Thank you, Tim.
Yes.
And
thank
Chris,
you so much, Chris.
Love your attitude, my friend.
Likewise, man. I have a feeling we have a collaboration coming up next year, but
let's do it.
My 2 cents.
Oh,
in a metal mood, man.
Stuff's happening right here. It's going to be one big jam and one big splashing of paint colors everywhere. It's going to be amazing.
But I like how you cough up paintings during COVID. That was one part that was making me giggle.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I've never been able to honestly kind of embrace, just for myself. I respect other artists, but I can't take it that seriously. I never have. I mean, I draw rockets and kittens, you know, and I can't act like it's the Sistine Chapel. I just like what I do. You know, it's just strictly for fun. So. Yeah, so I just try not to take it too seriously. I mean, if I started being really serious about my work, it'd just be kind of a contradiction. Like telling people, you just don't understand it. You know, it's not just a rocket or a kitten. There's much more to it than that.
Rockets and kittens. That's there, and that's where we're going to end it with rockets and kittens.
Rockets.
And I love the fact that Dean Stanton has paint on his hands. Thanks again so much for being part of the TEDxYYC Level Up Conversations. My name's Tim Tamashiro. I've been joined today by artist Dean Stanton and musician Chris Maric, founder of One Big Jam. And that's it for today's edition. Stay tuned for more Level Up Conversations as they happen in the weeks to come. And there's a schedule, I believe, that is on the TEDxYYC Facebook page. You can check that out and stay tuned. Thanks so much again, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Chris.